You know, after seeing things like Azel, where it's literally 8 VRs dot deck, I'm really glad that there's still some decks, like even OTT, that don't change the grade 3s from 4 Imperial Daughters, 4 Amaterasu's, plus the Deer, because I don't want this game to become all your grade 3s are VRs or else, and I'm kind of afraid that that's where it's going. Hello and welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about a good budget deck. Some people have already talked about this because people caught onto it pretty early in Japan and then it spread to the West pretty fast as well. I think Nexus Core already made a video about it, so you can check that out if you want to, but today I'm going to be covering Pellinore / Mach Slash Dragon. Haha, get it? Slash, haha. But this deck is really good, and it doesn't include a single VR, and I'm pretty sure that with today's prices, and the prices of the last month or so, you can build it for about 40 bucks, which is pretty good for a budget deck. That's costing you about as much as your average video game. So this is going to be quite different from my usual presentation. You know, I'm not going over with tabletop, and I'm not doing it in the usual manner where we put it out card by card. I'm just going to talk about what the deck does, why it's good, why it's cheap, you know, some card prices and whatnot, and I'll give you an example deck list at the end, but it's really just going to be one of the first topping Japanese ones that actually laid out the whole kind of concept. So Mach Slash Dragon doesn't have the Axle gift, so it's not going to be your main grade 3, but it has a really good skill that when it attacks, you can counterblast 1 to call something from your hand, and then Mach Slash gets a 5k power bonus. This is really good because in Standard, there's no other way to really, well, until VBTO3 I think, there's no real way to call mid-battle phase, and especially not to call this efficiently. And on top of that, when you pair it up with Pellinore, not that first skill, that's just bait there. Or well, you can use it sometimes, but it's really not the main point. But Pellinore's second skill, which is that at the end of a battle that your rear guard attacked, you can counterblast 1 to bounce it back to hand. That's the real good shit. So what you can essentially do is you attack with a Mach Slash, and you have a bunch of targets in the deck that I'll go over, including another Mach Slash itself, and then after he attacks and calls something, you can bounce him back with Pellinore, and then call him again with something else, and then you're able to kind of keep looping, and of course that costs a lot of counterblast, because Mach Slash costs a counterblast and Pellinore casts a counterblast, costs, not casts, but those are actually the only 2 cards in the deck that counterblast at all. And because you're playing Gold Paladin, you have the wonderful Din Drain, which actually countercharges. Therefore, you get multiple uses out of your Pellinores and out of your Mach Slashes. That way, you can also call down some stuff that you might want to put back into your hand with the Pellinore, you know, that have like high shield values, or you want to keep reusing the on-call effects or something like that, because you do call from hand, so you trigger a lot of those nice effects too. Now, you have 2 main cards in the deck right now that extend your combos. These are Sagramore and Vivian. Sagramore is really good because whenever he's called, you just pay the cost, call something else, and you also draw a card, which is really nice because that just keeps extending your combos. You can keep calling more and more and more stuff, and that way you push out a lot of attacks. This deck aims to win fast, to spam Axle circles, and to really just keep pushing your opponent super quick. If you go first, you just kind of want to steamroll them. It can kind of adapt to defensive triggers a little bit, but not too well. That's why when you're bouncing stuff back and calling stuff again, you want to keep focusing on your Axle circles so you get that extra plus 10k. That way you're not getting denied by the defensive triggers that your opponent might get. The other main extender, as I mentioned, is Vivian. She has a slightly bigger cost, but she's still very good because this call doesn't actually happen from your hand, so you're saving on hand cards, and it's still good because she can basically search out for whatever you find in your top 3. It might be another Mach Slash, it might be another Sagramore, it might be a bunch of other cards that help you out, whether they're extra power cards, or if they're combo extenders, or if they're just whatever you can drop in your Axle circle, they're pretty good. So that's why I think that Sagramore and Vivian are the best cards in terms of extending combos. Vivian is also the most expensive card in the deck, so she's a triple rare that goes for about 4 to 5 bucks right now. So if you haven't already and you plan to play this deck, I'd say pick it up as fast as possible. So overall, a pretty cheap deck. As I said at the start of the video, it's gonna be basically 40-ish bucks going off today's prices. That might go up to like 50 unless Vivians are bought out or something, but honestly, that's the only thing I can see. Mach Slash is a common. A lot of the other cards in the deck are commons or rares. The only other foils, like Pellinore, costs 2 bucks. The Halo Shield Mark Perfect Guard costs around 2 bucks. And then the Sagramore that I mentioned also costs around 2 bucks. So that's, you know, a few playsets that you need, but again, it shouldn't really surpass 40 to 50 bucks in my opinion, so you should be able to pick it up for a good price. I think it's the best budget deck you can get right now, and I think definitely at a local level especially, you should be able to pick up wins in your standard tournaments for sure, maybe even win the whole thing, because the deck at the moment is better than Azel in my opinion, because Azel has the advantage that you kind of, you know, superior ride really fast, but that's much better in premium than it is in standard until the Raven-haired Azel comes out in standard in VBT03, so we have to wait until then. But on the topic of VBT03, some players in Japan have actually enhanced this idea of the Mach Slash budget deck by including Garmor. So I'm going further than just the basic Pellinore deck, so I wanted to focus on that because you can build that in English right now, and you know, we know the prices already. But with VBT03 coming out in, if I'm not mistaken, February, we're also gonna get the option to play the Garmor variant of this deck, which has its own merits. It's quite a bit different because you lose the bouncing power of Pellinore, but you get the anti-destruction effect of Garmor and anti-attacking rearguards effect, I guess, and also the multiple calling effect that Garmor also holds. The deck also runs Wonder Azel, even though there's no Azel Grade 3 in the deck. That's because Wonder Azel can also work as a combo extender, so the deck runs both Vivian and Wonder Azel, so that way you have a lot more of call extension, but you don't have the bouncing power of Pellinore, so do be careful when you call down your Mach Slashes because they might just get killed right after that. So I think the deck that I'm going to show runs 3 of each Grade 3, whereas in the Pellinore variant, you're more likely to run like 4 Pellinore, 4 of the Mach Slash, and then 2 or 3 Sagamores, usually 3 I think. But I'm going to also give you right now the deck list that I think is more or less the most standard, most typical deck list for Mach Slash Pellinore. So it just includes the good, you know, the good cards that we already mentioned, the call targets, the call extenders, the cards that push for numbers like Gareth. He doesn't really have any other application outside of pushing for numbers, but again, he costs a counterblast, but only if you want to use that. So that's something that's up to you. You can also see the trigger lineup here, so that's basically all for the this Gold Paladin budget deck, but I think honestly for you budget players right now, this is going to be the best thing you can pick up. There are some other budget decks coming up in VBT03 in my opinion that I would like to talk about in the future. And I'd also like to address the fact that I stopped making videos of just like, here's every budget deck for every clan in the set, because I felt like oftentimes I would be making terrible decks and just selling them off as like, oh, this is budget, but it's not even good. Whereas now with videos like this, I'm talking about strictly good budget decks. So it's budget decks that actually can get you wins, budget decks that actually have a win condition and can actually achieve it pretty well. So that's why I only want to be talking about those. I don't want to be wasting your time or your money picking up, you know, budget variants of decks where really there's no point in building those clans unless you can afford the VRs, as sad as that is. There's another one that I wanted to make before, which is Mandala Lord, which actually won a WGP in Japan, so no Zanbaku's, just Mandala Lord, which surprised me, and I wanted to make that video, but I kind of dragged it too long, and now the deck isn't that good because it just doesn't keep up that well. Maybe after the next Murakumo support, it's going to get updated, and then I'll do it, so we'll see, but that's going to be in VBT04. But there's still like maybe 1 or 2 more budget videos I want to do after the VBT03 release in English, so I strictly want to keep these for English only, just because that way it's easier for me to make the videos with the English scans and everything, so you can read the effects as I'm going through this. But the other ones are OTT because I think Witches are actually pretty okay as a budget deck as well. They have their win con, they have good card pool as well that you can actually play without the expensive cards. And so I think Witches are a pretty good variant to talk about. And another one that's been kind of developed by Can You Say G is the Soul Saver / Palamedes Royal deck. So I think that's also a pretty good budget variant that a lot of budget players can pick up. So I think it's good that the second wave of support for a lot of these clans is bringing out budget options, and I think that's really nice. So hopefully, you know, it doesn't shoot up in price out of nowhere, but we'll see what the prices are like in the end. If I see that all the things that I've mentioned get too expensive in the future, then I won't do it. But for now, this is what I think a good budget deck is looking like in the format. So it's going to be good for January, it was good for December, and it'll be good for even February. And then if you want to update it with the Garmor that I told you about, then you can go ahead and do that as well. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, do make sure to click the bell button. You can also check out my second channel, as well as the social medias in the description, and join the Discord channel if you haven't already. But on that note, that's going to be it for me today. Don't forget to also let me know what you think of the budget deck. If you have any experience playing it, let me know how it goes, because I have tested it a little bit, but I've mostly had it played against me. But it does seem like a very good deck, and it's got tops in Japan, and I think people in the West have already been experimenting with it as well. So that's going to be it for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.